First up, we have Emily Kwok with How to Dehumanize Parenthood.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, really quickly before I begin, I'm going to ask for some audience participation. Can you put your hands in the air for me and just wave them around a bit? Wonderful. Thank you. Now you can put them down. I did that really just because I want you to be able to leave this and tell your friends that at least one of the speakers moved you tonight, and that was me. So I'll get started. I started at the beginning of this year wanting to know more about the convergence between human bodies and technology. I am, after all, a child of the 90s. I graduated college during a pandemic, and I said goodbye to some beloved classmates of 4 years on a computer screen. Dating for me usually begins by opening an app on my phone, and for work, I spend more of my time interacting with strangers online than I do seeing my longtime friends in real life, which I admit is pretty difficult for someone like me who is obsessed with people and proximity. Whether it's the fault of the internet, the phone, or a change in societal norms, I'm not quite sure, but I am interested in this ever-changing game of communication, how saying what we want to say is always in motion. Today, I'm talking about a tool that updates the status of a person to their most loyal followers at their earliest stage of life. That is the baby monitor. And not just any baby monitor, a smart monitor. In February, I talked to my friend Nadia, who recently had a baby and had purchased something called a smart sock. It's a lightweight, wearable baby monitor that was released in 2015 by a baby tech company called Owlet. The sock is a strip of woven fabric that's been folded and sewn to wrap around the foot of a baby. Embedded in the fabric is a small white disc. This disc is a pulse oximeter, a medical-grade tool that reads a baby's heart rate and oxygenation levels. Real-time data from the sock is sent to a local hub, which feeds into Owlet's storage cloud and then directly to a parent's phone, notifying a parent of any irregularities in breath. When I asked her why she bought it, Nadia said, "My thought process in preparing to be a mom was to give myself the best shot, and that felt like outsourcing some of these responsibilities to other people or devices." Many people can relate to how Nadia feels. The responsibilities of parenthood can be incredibly overwhelming, and for the price of $300, the Smart Sock presents a promising solution to answer all the mysterious questions about baby health and soothe the anxieties of a parent. During early days of marketing, CEO Kurt Workman raved about the sock's ability to detect and prevent SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, a term used to describe the undiagnosable death that happens when a baby randomly stops breathing. The sock promises to notify you whenever your baby's oxygenation levels are unstable, making it a go-to product for any concerned parent. With stakes so high, the monitor nearly sells itself. Within 6 years of its founding, Owlet went public, valuing at over $1 billion for a single product. The baby tech company's success, however, is not entirely without critics. For starters, most pediatricians don't recommend the smart monitor to parents. When asking Dr. Noreen Womack why, she responded, "I've seen parents who are anxious. They want to do everything right. Instead of checking on the baby, they're just checking on the monitor." The medical field's hesitancy to endorse smart monitors poses a serious question. Do advanced monitors create a false sense of security? And what happens when a product that we've grown to rely on fails? When it comes to reducing the risk of SIDS, the majority of healthcare professionals, along with the CDC, recommend simple practices summarized in educational campaigns released during the 1990s. These programs preceded the biggest decrease of SIDS-related deaths in the United States, from 130 deaths to 38 per 100,000 babies, with the majority of deaths reported from Indigenous, Black, and Pacific Islander populations. When talking to Victoria Suggs, a doula's assistant and founder of Sisterly, a women's health nonprofit, she mentions how products like the Smart Sock often are inaccessible to young families due to the hefty price tag. For many marginalized communities, high-end monitors are not even on the radar. In Maria Hernandez Park in Brooklyn, I spoke with a woman named Rosa, who works all day selling drinks with her baby. When I asked her whether she relied on any form of modern monitoring device at home, she looked completely confused, not knowing what I meant by the word monitor. Her response indicates a gap in educational resources available to parents and prompts a deeper question: who gets to benefit from these rapid advancements? In October 2021, the FDA warned Owlet that the smart sock was being marketed as a medical device without proper FDA certification. Claiming to help parents self-diagnose a baby who might be at risk for SIDS is considered dangerous, as parents are receiving information without the help of a medical professional to discern readings. Since then, Owlet has released the Dream Sock, which follows FDA standards, the main difference being a change in the app's user interface. Instead of showing live stats of the baby's vitals, the Dream Sock only shows insights related to sleep patterns and overall health readings. Even so, the emerging field of baby tech is booming. With products like the Snoo, a smart bassinet that rocks your baby to sleep, or a smart monitor from Cubo AI that uses AI technology to interpret the cries and facial expressions of your baby, it's a utopia for tech-hype parents who fully believe in the idea that technology makes everything better, faster, and more efficient. Parents want the best for their children. And for the upper middle class, adoption of new baby products seems to be the best way to raise a kid. This sentiment isn't necessarily new. It turns out that the baby monitor has always been riding the crest of technology, following the commercialization of radio and spurred by a tragic kidnapping. In 1932, the 20-month-old baby of Charles and Anne Lindbergh was kidnapped in the dead of night and never seen alive again. The Lindbergh kidnapping was disturbing news, the type to take over headlines, and for months, the American public was in complete shock. As a response to this reaction, Zenith Radio Corporation commissioned Isamu Noguchi, a designer known for his sculptural set designs at the time, to help design the first baby monitor called the Radio Nurse. The Radio Nurse is an oddity that traverses the landscape between what is human and what is technology. The form was surprisingly humanistic for the 1930s. Made out of brown bakelite, it's an elegant yet eerie object that represents the quickening of information across space and time. A summary written by the Victoria and Albert Museum in London suggests that it was influenced by the Japanese kendo mask. Kendo being a sport Noguchi was familiar with since a young age. A photo from the Noguchi archive in Queens shows the artist wearing a traditional kendo uniform at age 7. The designer moved frequently throughout the country with his mother and sister, and seldom saw his father, Yonejiro Noguchi, who had left his mother for another woman in Japan. Isamu and Yonejiro had a bitter and distant relationship, and it's with this knowledge that I wonder whether the aesthetic of Radio Nurse was inspired to look more as a protector rather than a caretaker based off of personal relationships. The mask uses horizontal stripes to shield one's face. It's a design that distorts facial expression while protecting oneself from the blows of the opponent. The application of these stripes onto an immobile object in the shape of a head results in an artifact that is both warm and repelling, inviting yet cold. It reminds us of the contradictions in our humanity, something that couldn't be communicated through the geometric aesthetics of the modern style in the 1930s. Since Noguchi's time, the monitor has come a long way in both form and capability. Instead of looking like a human, it's now worn by one. The reasoning behind the product, however, remains the same. It's a symbol of the never-ending worries of a parent and our attempts at designing certainty into the inherently risky and complex task of parenthood. In Prospect Park, a young father named Tom mentions, "I don't know if the monitor necessarily relieves any anxiety or is more of a symptom of anxious parents." His response is thought-provoking, as if to say, the tools we make today are indicative of the perspective our society has towards relationships as a whole. To which Dr. Womack simply says, "There's nothing wrong with more information. Just know that it won't solve all your problems. Most of the time, all you need to do is walk into the room." A big thank you to the SVA faculty, and for those who participated, thank you very much.
Ow, ow! Give it up one more time for Emily Kwok. Way to go! Oh my God, I'm gonna give you a hug. I'm giving you a hug. I put on deodorant right before this. I knew I would be giving hugs. Any babies in the audience? I think that's for the best. I know I'm not supposed to ask this, but any plans for children ever?
Depends on who's asking, but currently no. Currently no.
Currently no. Okay, we'll stay with no right now. That was amazing. I've really loved running into you on the subway because you live in Ridgewood. I live in Bushwick, so we take the L. And I've run into Emily a few times. You came from Utah, right? So how's the year been in New York?
I love it. It's been super fun. It was a big change, like really big for me, but I really like New York. It's a fun place to be.
I agree. I think everyone else agrees too, right? Yeah, and so what drove you to want to do your thesis on babies? Because I know you started, I guess you kind of talked about that at the beginning, but you were going in like a different direction. Why babies?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I was like confused halfway through writing my thesis. I was like, oh shoot, this is transformed into something. I really was just, I first started off wanting to research wearables and like avant-garde wearables, like very high fashion, futuristic ones. And the more I did research, the more I was like I felt super out of my realm. And I was like, oh, I need to return to something that I know is true to me, true to the place where I'm from. I mean, Utah is very well known for having lots of big families. So so I was like, I feel like that's something that I can actually dig deep into and relate to. So yeah.
Great. Well, I learned a lot as not being a parent, but yeah, well, thank you so much, Emily. It's been great having you, and that was an incredible presentation. So give it up one more time for Emily.